You have been clearing your throat for weeks, maybe months, maybe longer than you want to admit. That thick, sticky feeling that sits at the back of your throat regardless of what you eat, what you drink, or how many times you cough to try to clear it. You have tried warm water with lemon, you have tried ginger tea, you have tried cough syrups that promise to break up the mucus, and in the best case, you got maybe 20 minutes of relief before it came back, as thick and persistent as before. If that description fits your experience, I want you to understand something that most physicians do not explain clearly in a standard appointment. That mucus is not your problem. It is your body's solution to a problem. And until you identify and address the actual problem, nothing you do to the mucus itself will produce lasting relief. You are mopping the floor without turning off the tap. I'm Dr. Jake Taylor, and today I'm going to tell you what is actually causing that persistent throat mucus in the majority of cases, why it is almost certainly not what you think it is, and the 10 specific strategies that address the real cause and allow your throat to finally heal. This is not another list of home remedies. This is a clear explanation of the biology, followed by a practical plan of action organized into 4 fronts that you can start implementing today. Write your country in the comments, and if you're new here, subscribe and turn on notifications. I make these videos every week for people over 60 who want evidence-based health information they can actually use. Let me tell you about Thomas. He was 67 and had been clearing his throat constantly for 2 years. He described it as a full-time distraction. He would wake up every morning and spend the first 15 minutes of his day at the sink trying to clear his throat. He had been given 3 courses of antibiotics by different physicians, none of which produced any lasting change. He had been tested for allergies, the results were inconclusive, and the antihistamines he was prescribed helped only slightly. He had eliminated dairy, which some sources blamed for mucus production, and noticed almost no difference. When I sat with him and went through his full history, the picture became clear within the first 10 minutes of the conversation. "Has anyone ever mentioned silent reflux to you?" I asked. He had never heard the term. "Your problem is not in your throat," I told him. "It starts in your stomach." That single shift in understanding changed everything for Thomas. Within 6 weeks of implementing the protocol I'm going to describe today, his morning throat clearing had reduced by approximately 80%. Within 3 months, it had nearly stopped entirely. Today I'm going to give you the same explanation he received. The real reason your throat never clears. Before I explain what is actually causing your mucus problem, I need to clear away 4 common explanations that keep people trying the wrong solutions. Myth number 1 is that you have a cold or infection that will not go away. A standard viral cold has a biological life cycle. It lasts 7 to 14 days and is accompanied by nasal congestion, sneezing, generalized malaise, and often a low fever. If you have had thick throat mucus for more than 3 or 4 weeks without those accompanying symptoms, you are not dealing with an infection. You are dealing with something chronic. Antibiotics will do nothing for it because there is nothing bacterial to kill. The number of patients I have seen who completed multiple antibiotic courses for a problem that had nothing to do with infection is significant, and it is a consequence of this myth. Myth number 2 is that the cause is an allergy. Allergies can cause postnasal drip, that sensation of mucus running from the back of the nose down into the throat. And allergies are worth investigating, but they follow patterns. They typically worsen during specific seasons or in the presence of specific triggers, and they respond meaningfully to antihistamines. If you have tried antihistamine medications and your throat mucus persisted largely unchanged, or if your symptoms are consistent year-round regardless of season, allergies are likely not the primary cause. They may be a contributing factor, but they are not the root. Myth number 3 is that the cause is smoking or air pollution. Smoking does irritate the airway and causes the body to produce more mucus as a protective response. If you smoke, that is a significant contributing factor and addressing it is important. But I see patients every week who have never smoked a day in their lives, who live in areas with clean air quality, and who suffer from exactly this problem. The environmental explanation does not account for the majority of persistent throat mucus cases. Myth number 4 is that this is a normal part of aging. I hear this from patients who have been told by well-meaning physicians that chronic throat clearing is something to be expected and managed rather than resolved. I want to be direct about this. Waking every morning and spending the first part of your day clearing your throat is not a normal feature of getting older. It is a symptom of an imbalance that has a cause, and that cause can be addressed. Normalizing chronic discomfort is one of the most damaging things medicine can do for a patient's quality of life. If the cause is not a persistent infection, not allergies, not the environment, and not age, what is it? For the majority of patients I see with this specific pattern, the answer begins not in the throat, not in the lungs, not in the nose. It begins in the stomach. The real cause, acid from your stomach, is burning your throat. The condition responsible for persistent throat mucus in the majority of cases is called Laryngopharyngeal reflux, or LPR. I call it silent reflux, and the reason for that name is the most important thing to understand about it. When most people hear the word reflux, they think of heartburn, that burning sensation in the chest that rises after a heavy meal. But silent reflux is fundamentally different. More than half of people who have it experience no heartburn whatsoever, no chest burning, no obvious acid taste, nothing that would lead them or their physician to suspect a stomach problem, which is exactly why it goes undiagnosed for years while patients receive treatment for conditions they do not have. Here is the biology. Your stomach contains gastric acid, one of the most corrosive substances your body produces, designed specifically to break down food. Between your stomach and your esophagus sits a muscular valve called the lower esophageal sphincter. Under normal circumstances, this valve opens to allow food to pass down and closes tightly afterward to keep acid in the stomach where it belongs. When this valve weakens or relaxes at the wrong time, the contents of the stomach can move upward. During the day, gravity helps keep things in place, but when you lie down at night, gravity is no longer working in your favor, and here is the detail that changes everything. It does not require a large amount of liquid acid to cause significant damage to the throat. What travels upward during silent reflux is often an acidic vapor. A fine mist so subtle that you feel nothing as it rises, passes through the upper esophageal sphincter and settles onto the most sensitive and unprotected area of your upper airway. Your larynx, where your vocal cords are located, your pharynx, the back of your throat. Unlike your stomach, which has a thick protective lining specifically designed to withstand acid, your throat has no such protection. When acidic vapor touches the delicate tissue of the larynx and pharynx night after night, it produces a chemical irritation at the cellular level, a low-grade burn that never fully heals because the exposure continues every time you lie down. Your throat's response to this injury is the response of any tissue under sustained chemical attack. It produces a protective layer of mucus. That thick, sticky coating you have been trying to clear is not a disease. It is a defense. Your body is trying to protect itself by coating the damaged tissue with a physical barrier against further injury. This is why nothing you do to address the mucus directly produces lasting relief. The mucus will be produced as long as the underlying irritation continues. Clearing it buys you minutes of relief at best, because the tissue is still under attack and the body immediately begins replenishing the protective layer. There is one more component to this that makes the problem significantly more persistent. The acidic vapor that rises from the stomach does not travel alone. It carries with it a digestive enzyme called pepsin. Pepsin's job in the stomach is to break down protein. It is extraordinarily effective at this function. During reflux episodes, pepsin travels upward with the acidic vapor and deposits itself on the tissue of the throat, where it can remain for extended periods. Here's what makes this particularly problematic. Pepsin that has deposited in the throat tissue becomes activated by anything acidic that subsequently passes through: the morning coffee, the glass of orange juice, the vinegar in a salad dressing, Each time an acidic substance contacts throat tissue where pepsin has deposited, the enzyme activates and begins doing what it was designed to do, breaking down protein. But there is no food protein to break down, so it breaks down the proteins of your own throat tissue instead. Microscopic damage, repeated continuously, provoking exactly the protective mucus response that drives you to clear your throat constantly. Understanding this mechanism changes the entire strategy. The goal is no longer to reduce mucus. The goal is to stop the reflux, neutralize the pepsin, and give the throat tissue the conditions it needs to heal. I want to be precise about one thing before we move to the plan. The healing timeline for laryngopharyngeal tissue is longer than most people expect. The throat tissue that has been exposed to acidic vapor night after night for months or years does not recover in a few days. The inflammation is deep, and the tissue needs extended periods without re-exposure to begin meaningful repair. This is why the strategies in the following section need to be applied consistently for at least 3 weeks before you make any judgment about whether they are working. The patients who abandon the plan after 5 days because they have not seen dramatic results are the ones who never experience the full benefit. Commit to 3 weeks of consistent implementation. The biology requires it. The 10-step plan to finally stop throat mucus. Now that you understand what you are actually fighting, here is the plan to fight it effectively. 10 specific strategies organized into 4 fronts. You do not need to implement all of them simultaneously from the first day. Start with the most impactful ones and add more as your habits adjust. Step 1 to 2. Protect your throat at night. Strategy number 1. Elevate the head of your bed. This is the single most important structural change you can make, and the results in patients who do it correctly are often noticeable within the first week. When you sleep flat, you create a level pathway from the stomach to the throat. Gravity, which works in your favor during the day, is neutralized entirely. The solution is to raise the entire upper portion of your body by elevating the head of the bed itself by 15 to 20 centimeters. This is not achieved by stacking pillows, which only bends the neck and can actually worsen reflux by increasing abdominal pressure. The elevation needs to come from below the mattress. Place solid blocks, thick books, or purpose-made bed risers under the legs at the head of the bed. Alternatively, a wedge-shaped pillow that supports the full torso from hip to shoulder is an effective option. With this elevation in place, gravity continues working against reflux even while you sleep. Strategy number 2. Sleep on your left side. The anatomy of the stomach means that lying on the left side keeps the gastric contents in a position that is lower and further from the esophageal valve. Lying on the right side, by contrast, brings the stomach contents closer to the valve and significantly increases the likelihood of upward movement during sleep. This is a small change with a disproportionate impact on nighttime reflux frequency. Step 3 out of 5. Fix your diet. Strategy number 3. The 3-hour rule. Your stomach requires time to empty after a meal before you lie down. When you eat and lie down within 1 to 2 hours, a significant volume of partially digested food remains in the stomach, and the risk of reflux is highest. The rule is straightforward. Finish your last meal or snack of the day at least 3 hours before lying down. If you typically sleep at 10 p.m., your last food intake should be no later than 7 p.m. This single habit change produces measurable reductions in nighttime reflux for most patients within the first 2 weeks. Robert was 69 and had been snacking right up until bedtime for years, describing it as his way of relaxing in the evening. When I explained that every bite of food after 7 p.m. was setting up his stomach for a night of reflux activity, he was skeptical but willing to try. After 2 weeks of ending all food intake by 7:30 p.m., he described waking up with noticeably less throat congestion. "I didn't realize my evening habits were the problem," he said. "I thought I was just unlucky." Strategy number 4. Make dinner your lightest meal. Large meals, particularly those high in fat, take significantly longer to digest and keep the stomach full and under pressure for extended periods. Evening meals should be the smallest of the day, built around lean proteins such as fish or chicken, cooked vegetables, and modest portions of complex carbohydrates. Fried foods, heavy sauces, and rich desserts eaten in the evening are the circumstances most likely to trigger a significant nighttime reflux episode. Strategy number 5. Identify and remove your trigger foods for 3 weeks. Certain foods consistently relax the lower esophageal sphincter or are acidic enough to activate deposited pepsin in the throat. The most common culprits are coffee, caffeinated tea, carbonated drinks including sparkling water, alcohol, particularly white wine, chocolate, mint in any form, tomatoes and tomato-based sauces, citrus fruits and juices, vinegar, spicy foods, and high-fat fried foods. I recommend a strict 3-week elimination of all of these, not a reduction, an elimination. This gives the throat tissue an extended period without acid activation, which is often the minimum time required for the inflammation to meaningfully subside. After 3 weeks, you can reintroduce items one at a time to identify which ones specifically trigger your symptoms. Dorothy was 71 and had been drinking 2 cups of coffee every morning for 40 years. She was certain it was not the cause of her throat problem because she had always drunk coffee without issue. When I explained that silent reflux and its symptoms can develop gradually over years as the esophageal valve weakens with age, she agreed to a 3-week elimination. By day 18, her morning throat clearing had reduced by more than half. Coffee was her primary trigger. Step 6-8. Daily habits that make the difference. Strategy number 6. Hydrate consistently between meals. Adequate hydration keeps mucus thinner and more fluid, which reduces the thick, sticky quality that makes throat mucus so uncomfortable. However, drinking large amounts of water during meals fills the stomach and increases pressure on the esophageal valve. The strategy is to drink water steadily throughout the day in small amounts, particularly between meals, rather than in large quantities during meals. Strategy number 7. Alkaline gargling. This is a targeted intervention that directly addresses the acid and pepsin environment in the throat. Dissolve half a teaspoon of bicarbonate of soda in a glass of warm water. Gargle for 30 seconds, particularly first thing in the morning when the effects of overnight reflux are most present and after meals. Do not swallow. The alkaline solution neutralizes residual acid in the throat and helps deactivate pepsin that has deposited on the tissue. This is not a cure for the underlying problem, but it is an effective way to reduce the ongoing damage while the other strategies take effect. Strategy number 8. Sugar-free gum after meals, not mint-flavored. Chewing gum after meals stimulates saliva production. Saliva is naturally alkaline and helps wash and neutralize acid that may have reached the throat. It also stimulates swallowing, which mechanically clears the esophagus. Choose fruit-flavored varieties. Mint flavors relax the lower esophageal sphincter and will worsen rather than help the problem. Step 9 to 10. Natural support strategy number 9. Anti-inflammatory herbal teas. 2 specific teas have well-documented benefits for throat inflammation from reflux. Chamomile tea is anti-inflammatory and calming and reduces irritation in both the esophagus and the throat. Ginger tea made from fresh ginger root is a potent natural anti-inflammatory that also supports gastric motility, meaning it helps the stomach empty more efficiently. Both can be taken after meals and in the evening as part of a settling routine. Prepare ginger tea from fresh sliced ginger, steep for 10 minutes, and add a small amount of honey if desired. Avoid adding lemon to these teas during the initial 3-week elimination period. Strategy number 10. Address chronic stress directly. Stress increases gastric acid production through the stimulation of the vagus nerve and the release of stress hormones. For patients who are managing chronic stress, this is a physiological contributor to their reflux that no dietary change alone can fully compensate for. 15 minutes of daily intentional relaxation, whether through controlled breathing, walking, meditation, or any other practice that genuinely reduces your stress response, is not an optional wellness addition. It is a direct intervention in the biology of your reflux. Margaret was 73 and had implemented every dietary change and the bed elevation with good results, but her symptoms would reliably worsen during periods of family stress. When we discussed the direct connection between the stress response and gastric acid production, She began a daily 10-minute breathing practice before dinner. Her symptom pattern stabilized noticeably. "I never thought stress and my throat were connected," she said. "Now it seems obvious." The connection is physiological, not psychological. Stress is not making you imagine symptoms. It is increasing the acid that produces them. Your starting point tonight. Here is what I want you to do with this information. Tonight, before you go to bed, make one change. Elevate the head of your bed by 15 centimeters using books, blocks, or a wedge pillow. This single intervention reduces the amount of acidic vapor reaching your throat during sleep more than any other change you can make in the next 24 hours. Tomorrow morning, begin the 3-week trigger food elimination. Remove coffee, carbonated drinks, citrus, tomatoes, mint, alcohol, and fried foods simultaneously. Start the alkaline gargle each morning. Apply the 3-hour rule to your evening meals from tonight. Track one simple marker each morning. The amount of time you spend clearing your throat when you wake up. Note it on your phone or a piece of paper. Most patients notice a measurable reduction within 7 to 10 days of consistent implementation. The changes are not always dramatic in the first week, but they are consistent. By 3 weeks, the majority of patients with silent reflux who implement these strategies faithfully describe a significant and sustained improvement in their symptoms. I want to address something I hear consistently from patients at this point. They ask whether they need medication as well. The honest answer is that for mild to moderate silent reflux, the strategies in this video are often sufficient on their own without pharmaceutical intervention. For more severe cases, proton pump inhibitors prescribed by a physician can reduce acid production and speed healing of the throat tissue. But medication alone, without the lifestyle changes described here, typically produces only partial and temporary relief. The strategies in this video address the mechanical and behavioral causes of the reflux. Medication addresses the acid production. For the best outcomes, both work together. If your symptoms are severe, discuss medication options with your physician alongside implementing these changes. Do not use one as a substitute for the other. William was 74 and had resigned himself to what he described as a life of constant throat clearing. He had been told by 2 physicians that nothing specific could be done. Within 4 weeks of implementing the nighttime elevation, the 3-hour rule, and the 3-week elimination, he sent me a message that said simply, "I slept through the night and woke up without clearing my throat once. That has not happened in 3 years." The throat tissue needed the acid exposure to stop long enough to begin healing. That is all it took. The body's healing capacity is extraordinary when you stop interfering with it. Leave a comment telling me which of these strategies you are going to start with tonight, and tell me how long you have been managing this problem. Your experience helps other people in this community understand what to expect and gives them the confidence to begin. If this video gave you something useful, share it with someone who has been clearing their throat constantly and been told it is just something to live with. The information exists to explain and address this problem. The people who need it deserve to have it. Subscribe if you haven't already. I'm Dr. Jake Taylor. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next video.